morning, everybody. If you are here for the Third Sun Kokosing Solar Inflation Reduction Act webinar, you're at the right place. We're going to just go ahead and jump right in. First off, a small little note of logistics. We originally scheduled this webinar for 30 minutes. Yesterday it went long, so if you drop off at 30 minutes, if you've got a hard stop, we'll go ahead and be following up with you if you registered and send you some information about what you might have missed. Otherwise, we'll probably end up with Q&A going closer to 45 minutes. Next slide, please, Jared. So today we're going to basically go through this agenda. We'll tell you a little bit about Third Sun Kokosing Solar, talk about the changing economics and the changing solar incentive, specifically the new changes to the ITC or investment tax credit in the Inflation Reduction Act that just passed. We'll talk about how it would impact your organization. We've got people registered representing units of government, schools and institutions, nonprofits, and of course, private businesses. So this is primarily focused on commercial applications, non-residential applications. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the market conditions that lead to a sense of urgency around here. And then we'll obviously tell you how you can keep moving forwards to learn if solar and these technologies are a good fit for your organization. All right, so this picture is of our headquarters in Westerville. Some of you might already know Third Sun Solar. We've been doing solar in Ohio and the Midwest, primarily the surrounding states of Ohio, for 23 years. I founded Third Sun Solar with my wife, and we've kind of ridden solar up as it's grown traction in our part of the country. And then in April of this year, Third Sun Solar formally became part of Kokosing, the Kokosing family of companies, specifically Kokosing Industrial Inc. Kokosing is a 73-year-old construction leader delivering heavy highway, bridges, industrial, wastewater treatment plants, hospitals, schools, commercial construction throughout the Midwest and into the Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore and Washington, D.C., Virginia, et cetera. Kokosing has grown to become number 53 in the nation on the Engineering News record. It's about a $1.6 billion revenue per year company. We've got plus or minus 3,500 team members throughout our territory, and that's electricians, project engineers, heavy civil operators, laborers, carpenters. We self-perform all aspects of solar. That's a big differentiator. And really, it's this ramp up of solar and storage and efficiency that's happening. We're transforming our country, the entire energy infrastructure of our country. And it looked like a good opportunity to get some more help for that job. So we're excited that we've joined forces and have the strength of Kokosing behind us. So as with anything tax related, I'm going to make a major disclaimer. Everything we're saying here is general guidelines, general things that we're learning, but each specific situation is unique. We are not providing tax advice or guidance or accounting advice or guidance or legal advice or guidance. We suggest that you engage your tax professional, your advisory team for how these rules and regulations and policies might specifically apply to your unique situation. The second big disclaimer is that this is brand new legislation. We are sharing what we think we understand about it. We've read the 732 pages of obtuse, guidance, actual legislative policy. We've also incorporated some guidance from SEIA, Solar Energy Industries Association, as well as some legal folks that are opining on what this means. But the rulemaking is still forming. There's some things we'll call out where we specifically don't know. And it's possible that some of the things we say here are too vague to really give you perfect guidance yet. So stay tuned. We'll continue to be updating you on these things. A little introduction about who we are. So I am Geoff Greenfield, and my new role at Kokosing, Kokosing Solar, is the Director of Solar Strategy. I've been doing solar since 1997. I'm the original founder of Third Sun Solar. I'm on the board of directors of NABCEP, our industry's credentialing organization, national, actually international organization now. I'm also the co-founder of New Resource Solutions, a solar software company, and I have a podcast, solarforall.show, focused on the intersection of equity, justice, inclusion, and our growing industry. My co-presenter today, who's hopefully going to do most of the talking after I get done with this, is Jarrod Starr. He's the Solar Business Development Manager for Third Sun Kokosing Solar. He's been doing solar since 2015. Primarily does the solar design, consulting, financial modeling. He also is very familiar with the USDA REAP program and helping customers get grants. He also has his NABCEP certification. All right, with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Jarrod. Jarrod, walk us through.
All right, thanks, Geoff, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We're glad to have you here and talk about the implications of this exciting new bill. Before we dive right into that, we're going to take a quick look at the solar investment tax credit. It may be called something a little bit different, but it still remains pretty much the same in its structure. So the solar investment tax credit dates back to 2005, as you can see here. It's section 48 of the tax code, and it can be claimed on federal taxes owed for up to 30% of the cost of a solar system. It was designed for and delivered in driving down cost and increasing adoption, and that IRA is going to accelerate this by a great deal. So since 2006, the solar industry has grown by over 10,000%. This is incredible, but Geoff has been there from the beginning, and it would take him hours to explain how his company started with really little to no competition. The cost of solar and that growth has dropped by over 60% in the last decade. And with that, of course, it drives adoption. The annual growth of the industry, over 50% over the last decade alone. It just continues to grow every single year, largely driven by this policy. One of the shortcomings, or at least a couple of those shortcomings of the ITC, is uncertainty. So since its inception, it was designed for a year. Difficult to make those type of decisions. And after that, it was extended for short terms. It really made it difficult for organizations that are looking to make long-term investments. Another shortcoming of that original tax credit, it was available only to tax-paying entities. And that here is where the IRA bill makes some sweeping changes. And we're going to take a look at that. So
real quick, Jarrod, if I could interrupt, I failed to mention, we are taking questions. If you are logged in on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A icon. So if you do have questions along the way, go ahead and submit those there. We'll compile them. There's likely to be several questions that kind of overlap. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll dig into those. Sorry for the interruption, Jarrod. Go ahead.
No, thanks for the prompt. It worked yesterday. We got a lot of questions in, so appreciate that. So let's dive in here. This is the 2000 Inflation Reduction Act. Geoff may have shared earlier. We're going to be focusing mostly on the solar component. There's a lot of other things that Geoff will lightly touch on, of other things that are included in this bill, but let's talk about solar. So this bill does kind of divide the system size up, and we're going to start here at the top right. So if your project is under 1 megawatt AC, we're gonna look at some of those criteria. That first item up there, interconnection added to basis costs. So when project developers put these projects in motion, they can incur a lot of cost up front. The IRA bill now allows for some of those development costs and interconnection costs to actually be part of the part of the tax credit, which is a great benefit. It's limited to 5 megawatts AC, so it excludes a lot of the larger solar, utility-only solar fields, but it's a good inclusion to help drive adoption. Next down, this bill makes an immediate impact. So if you had a project that you've already built this year, or if you have one that is going to be built this year, that 30% is eligible to be taken right away. So if you had planned on a project that had a 26% tax credit, it just got a little bit better economic wise. So an immediate benefit, which is great. Certainty. So 30% tax credit is starting for projects now. There's a little bit of difference if you start a project within the 60 days of guidance from the Treasury Department. Your ITC may be a little bit different. We're going to talk about projects that are planned for next year. So 30% is going to be eligible for 2023 projects developed next year through 2033. So there's some criteria on how that looks for how it steps down. And essentially it's tied to meeting carbon reduction targets or that 2033 date, whichever happens, whichever occurs later. This allows for long-term planning and certainty over what we just looked at, uncertainty, short-term. So start planning now. These projects sometimes take a long time. You don't want to miss out. Some new additions this year, 10% bonus for domestic content, 10% bonus for siting in an energy community. So if your project is already eligible for 30%, you're now looking at 50% eligible for a tax credit. Those criteria Jeff's going to touch on a little bit more and what the eligibility is for those. On top of that, you do have project adders, and that is 10% additional for a low-end project in a low-income community, and 20% for a project that includes low-income residential housing. So these last two, 10% and 20% adders, they are competitively allocated, and there are caps to those. Jeff is also going to provide a little bit more guidance on what the eligibility is for those two adders. So moving down to slightly bigger projects, 1 megawatt AC and up, you'll see that the ITC, the base ITC looks a lot different. And we'll get into more of that here just a little bit more at the bottom. The base ITC now for these 1 megawatt AC and up projects is 6%. You can earn 2% bonus for domestic content, 2% bonus for siting in an energy community. So you're only at 8% there. The same 10% for low-income communities and 20% for low-income residential housing projects are also eligible, but they are limited to 5 megawatt AC. Again, it's kind of designed to make sure that these projects and the benefits and the economics go to the right intended targets for this project. In the orange down at the bottom is really where the rubber hits the road for this new IRA bill. And one of the things that I want to stop here and say that Kokosing, Third Sun Kokosing Solar is the right partner. We do have the eligibility to meet these additional adders right out of the gate. I'm sure Jeff has got some more feedback on this, but this is really exciting stuff. The bill is also intended to make sure that there are good paying green jobs, and that's what these adders are intended to do. So if you do qualify for this, your base ITC now is 24%, 8% for domestic content, and 8% bonus for siting in an energy community. So again, really exciting stuff. It changes the nature of the economics dramatically for entities looking to move forward with solar. There's a couple other components of that labor requirement, and some of those are prevailing wages. So prevailing wage rates must be paid on these projects. The Secretary of Labor in your state sets that up and determines what those wage rates are. Ohio does have that criteria. So we're set up, ready to go in Ohio, and Kokosing is well experienced and ready to act on these. The other labor component of that is an apprenticeship program. And there's a few different ways of reaching that apprenticeship program, 3 different criteria. And essentially, you have to have either a certain percentage of the project hours, apprenticeship to journeyman worker ratio, or there's also a participation rate. But there's clear guidance on how to achieve that. And working with a partner that meets that requirement can really change the economics for your project. A couple of other big differences in this new IRA bill from previous is that there is a component of direct pay. And I mentioned that this bill reaches a broader audience. Jeff's going to talk a little bit more about what that direct pay means. And there's also a component for a performance or production rather, PTC, production tax credit. So our initial analysis shows that the ITC is still more beneficial here in our region, but we can help you take a look at your project, find out what makes the most economic sense. But really some exciting adders and changes to this IRA that's really going to make a difference here in Ohio and across the region. Jeff, back to you, sir.
Thanks, Jarrod. Let's dig into those adders. Jarrod went over the base 30% tax credit and how if the project is larger than 1 megawatt AC, you need to use a prevailing wage and registered approved apprenticeship program in order to qualify for the full 30%. There's an additional 10% available if you meet the domestic content test. The rules here are still forming. We've been reaching out to several of the manufacturers to see what they know and if they believe they meet this or if they have a roadmap to meet this. Right now, what the rules say is that to get this 10% additional tax credit, your project, if it has steel components, 100% of that steel has to be US made steel. So a lot of times a large ground mount, for instance, will have steel components. Then the other piece is of all the additional equipment, the inverters, the modules, the electronics, et cetera, 40% of the manufactured equipment must have, that equipment must have 40% of its content from US sources. So solar is a pretty complex manufacturing process, and it involves the solar silicon, it involves refining into wafers, it involves making it into cells, and then assembling and putting a backsheet on, using special solar glass, using special aluminum extrusions. These are supplied by factories all over the world. We do have some of our favorite US-based manufacturers assembling in the US. We do not yet know if they meet that 40% content. We suspect that they don't. Most of the cells are coming from Taiwan. That said, there's a roadmap to onshore a lot of this. So we're hoping that we'll be able to provide domestic qualified materials soon to get our customers that extra 10%. The second big exciting part of the IRA is a 10% energy community adder. Some folks jokingly call this the Mansion or West Virginia adder, but it applies to a large part of Ohio and Pennsylvania, probably Virginia as well. So to qualify for this 10% additional tax credit, the project could be located on a brownfield that is a certified brownfield. A lot of times these are capped landfills. Sometimes they're former industrial sites that have been remediated but aren't being used for residential housing. They make great sites for solar. The other test is if their census tract or an adjacent census tract had a coal mine closed after 1999 or a retired coal-fired power plant after 2009. And then the other piece would be their poverty or their employment rate, or how much of their local tax revenues came from extraction, processing, transport of coal, oil, or natural gas. So again, we have parts of our geography that were part of that boom and bust of the fracking boom that might meet that test. So we'll be happy to dig into those details with you to find out how many percentage tax credit you might be eligible for. The additional adders are a 10, 20, or you can combine them for 30% low income community adder. Now, this is different from the above discussed adders in that it is a competitive adder. You need to make an application to the Treasury Department, and depending on the merits of your application, or maybe first come, first serve, we don't yet know, you will be awarded. This is capped at 1.8 gigawatts per year. So that's 1,800 megawatts. So that's not a small amount, but it's possible that this will go quickly. So this is something that we're focused on to learn the rules quickly, find out if our clients are going to be able to apply for this, help them with their applications. These are capped at 5 megawatt AC or smaller per project. And the first part of it is the 10% adder. If you are located, if a project is located in a low income community or on Indian land. And then the second 20% adder is that the project is part of a qualified low income residential building project, typically a multifamily project that's focused on affordable housing, or if it's in a qualified low income economic benefit project. And these are specific definitions called out in the code administered by HUD, and we can help you understand if it qualifies or not. Another big change here is direct pay. Historically, the only entities that could monetize or take advantage of this tax credit are folks that actually had a tax appetite, for-profit businesses that paid taxes. The legislation that just was passed allows for state and local municipal governments, tax-exempt entities, Indian tribal governments, Alaskan Native corporations, or rural electric co-ops. All of these folks don't traditionally pay taxes, but they would be able to get this tax credit paid to them in a direct pay ruling, likely well after the project has been built, but it's still a big boost. This is tied to the domestic content rule, where there's a reduction in the amount of tax credit you would get if you don't meet the domestic content rule. And we've also seen some guidance that units of government that are focused on using tax-exempt bond financing, you can qualify for the direct pay provision, but you might have a haircut or a reduction in the size of your tax credit if you're financing with tax-exempt bond financing. So it looks like a lot of spreadsheet work to find out what the best path is to maximize the project economics and impact. All right, we are not going to dig into this, but there's a lot more in the IRA beyond solar, all related to energy and economic development. The first off is USDA Rural Energy for America program, or REAP grants. Is a pretty proven program. We've helped many of our clients get this funding. It might be worth 25% of the project cost in the form of a grant. The funding going into that program has increased significantly. So we expect that the amount of awardees is going to increase as well as they try to push this money out the door. So that's businesses large and small, but not too large, can qualify. And organizations located in most of Ohio, most of Pennsylvania, most of Virginia can qualify. You just have to be located outside of one of the larger metropolitan service areas. So we can help you understand whether or not you qualify for that. There's changes to the tax code in terms of how you can carry this tax credit backwards or forwards. You can sell the credit in a much simpler way. In the past, there's a lot of legal structuring with a partnership flip, et cetera. But now, if you are developing projects and you can't use the tax credit yourself, you actually can sell it to a larger entity that has a larger tax appetite in a simpler way. That right there is going to make power purchase agreements or third-party owned systems on the rooftops of schools and units of government, et cetera, easier and more economic. So it's a big change there. There are a host of programs focused on energy justice and trying to bring the benefits of solar and energy efficiency to low and moderate income populations. There's expansion of support for green bank initiatives, again, focused on bringing solar to more and more people. There's focus on efficiency and electrification programs, EV deployment, and a lot of incentives to onshore US manufacturing to build up the supply chain for solar and batteries. There's a legislation supporting geothermal and heat pumps, and again, a block grant out there for environmental climate justice initiatives. So all this is happening to an already stressed and strained construction industry. Construction is booming. There's a lot of projects going up. We are just one of many solar energy installation companies that is out there trying to hire electricians, technicians, staff people at every level of the organization. And it's hard to hire great people. This is only going to exacerbate that challenge. The scope of this act is amazing. It's one of the biggest energy policy changes in my lifetime, for sure. It's going to likely, according to Forbes, double all of the existing solar that's already out there, and wind and solar. It's going to be doubling that over the next 7 years. We already have long lead times and supply chain challenges. That's likely going to be exacerbated by this. Quality projects take time. And again, it all comes down to the skilled workers that are up on a rooftop or out there doing this work. They must be done safely with high quality, high standards to make sure that these projects are long lasting. So the long and short of it is, if you are considering solar or interested in this, please jump now. Go ahead and reach out and start to investigate this to find out if it's a good fit for you, so that you're not basically left waiting for the support that you need in order to get these projects built.
Yeah, that's a great point, Geoff. And it's not necessarily driven at reaching out to us, but start those conversations internally. Like any decisions, when you make an investment, you do have to get all the stakeholders all aligned internally. So get your team together, start running this by the right people, and then when you've made a decision, reach out. So next steps, can your organization take part? We do know that this bill provides a much broader audience participation in solar energy, which is really exciting. That alone, you think, well, we're already able to take part. But some of the same processes and steps remain, and that's site feasibility. So solar behind the meter does need to take place on your site. So whether it's rooftop or ground mounted or a combination of the two, you still need to determine if solar is feasible for your site. So that's one of the first steps, and we can help do that. Quick remote analysis. We can take a quick look at your site and eliminate or step forward with the next steps. Everyone here should be receiving an email following this webinar today, thanking you for your participation, and also communicating some frequently asked questions and responses that we may not get time to answer today. Subscribe to emails, blogs. As Geoff said, there's a lot more information. Rules are still being made. They're going to be emerging over the next really 6 months is likely. So keep in touch, stay tuned for more. We didn't touch on it, but the IRA does include 30% tax credit for solar on residences as well. There's an additional standalone for energy storage. So that is another addition to this great bill. Contact our office. We'll be happy to take a look at your house.
So thanks, Jared, and thank you all for staying tuned. So as I suggested earlier, we've got some questions coming in. If you have questions about this new exciting legislation or solar in general, go ahead and submit them through the Q&A. We've got a couple that we can answer now, and one of them was whether or not we'll have a copy of this presentation. I believe that we will be able to share this with folks. So if you registered with an email, be sure to keep an eye out for your email for us to respond. Jared, do you have any other compiled questions so far?
Let's reach out to Caitlin, who's been joining us in the background. And Caitlin might be able to get those questions for us as they come in, or just retrieve those that we already have and share them with us.
Yeah, one of the first questions we have, are there any benefits or incentives for rental properties or property owners, particularly if serving HUD recipients?
Yes. So first off, we do have plenty of clients that we've been working with for several years that have put solar on rental properties in order to get that tax advantage and cover their house meter or common area electrical costs. In other cases, they're setting it up so that they actually can move from being the landlord to also being the kind of micro utility company, and basically selling their solar produced energy to their clients to help recoup their investment in solar. The legislation I mentioned that gives a 20% boost to the tax credit is designed to make sure that solar does not only serve the typical homeowners out there and businesses, but also can get onto the rooftops of affordable housing, HUD housing, etc. So sounds like that might be the application there that you're looking for. There are specifics in that rules that the benefits of that solar do need to flow down to the residents in that affordable housing development or residential rentals. So it's again one of those cases of your specific situation might or might not be a good fit for the tax credits. So give us a call and we'll dig into it. Good question.
And next question that we got, what do you foresee the Inflation Reduction Act doing to power purchase agreement structures?
That's a great one. So for some folks that might not be familiar with the term, a power purchase agreement or a PPA is a very popular approach to deploying solar. For instance, we would build, own, and operate a solar plant on the rooftop of a school, and the school would not have to outlay any money. They would simply have to provide access to the roof and agree to buy the energy made by that solar power plant for a certain number of years, 20 years, for instance. In the past, one of the big reasons for a power purchase agreement was that tax credit, as well as the accelerated depreciation benefits of investing in a solar power plant, were not available to a nonprofit. So effectively, this is a public-private partnership in order to have an entity that had a tax appetite be able to monetize that tax credit, not leave it underutilized. It's possible that there will be hybrid systems or hybrid PPAs out there where the school does take the tax credit. There's still the depreciation with accelerated depreciation. It's still certainly a subsidy from the federal government for solar. And then there's also the rest of the benefits of a PPA. No money out of pocket, no risk or exposure to the technology working or not working. You only pay for the energy that you get delivered into your building site. No operations and maintenance risk. We're incented to keep that system up and running so that we can send you a bill every month for the energy it produces. The other piece there is some of the cost of that tax credit was basically, I guess, to use the word, siphoned off to third parties because of this partnership flip and the limited amount of corporations that had the appetite to monetize that tax credit. The ability to syndicate or sell that tax credit is going to reduce that cost. So we expect PPAs will still be popular and in fact will be slightly less expensive for organizations to go into.
This question kind of rolls into that last question a little bit, but how will the IRA change financing for nonprofit schools and local governments?
Well, again, it could be that there's a PPA or a slightly adjusted hybrid PPA, or it could be that the schools and units of local government still might want to do a capital investment, in which case, instead of building a plant for $1 million, they'll build a plant for $1 million and be eligible for the 30% tax credit. Financing that does get complicated. And we want to make sure people understand that tax exempt bond financing does add complications. Usually it takes a spreadsheet to pencil this out one way or another. And we believe, again, in a kind of a transparent, what's best for the customer approach, where we kind of do these feasibility modeling studies side by side with our clients to understand what's the most cost-effective, efficient way to get their clean energy needs met. I did see one just came in on the Q&A. Someone asked if there's any chance that Ohio will pass a law discouraging net metering like Indiana did. Hard to say what the future holds. Clean energy on the one hand is challenging the existing status quo of the old way of utility power delivery. On the other hand, those same utilities, many of them, are rushing into this. They figured out that it's a pretty powerful way to make energy, where you invest in your power plant, but you don't have to invest in that fuel year after year. And so many of the largest solar investors out there are traditional utilities. So we're not sure exactly how the legislation is going to play out. Ohio already went through adjustments to its net metering program that made solar a little bit less economically attractive, and I guess, to use their argument, more fair to the utility. So if you export power, you're not paid as much as you used to be paid. We design systems very carefully to avoid exporting power. As far as Indiana and laws actually fighting against net metering, we don't see that happening. We think net metering is all about economic freedom. It's all about the free market. It's all about a free capitalist approach to competition. Those values are pretty important to the legislature of Ohio and to the citizens of Ohio. So we don't expect any further attacks on net metering in Ohio, but you never know.
Does Third Sun Kokosing Solar have an in-house accounting team to assist solar clients with the tax incentive?
So as we said at the very beginning, we are not out there giving tax advice. However, we certainly don't want your tax professional or accountant to be spinning their wheels, looking up certain guidelines that we are aware of. So Jarrod, on the regular, works with clients and provides them, with kind of clues as to where in the tax code they can find guidance, where there's some, accounting and legal kind of opinions out there, so that each individual's specific tax advisory can help them, understand that. So we can help them not reinvent the wheel, but we're not in the tax or accounting business. All right, there's another question specifically asking about time of use rates I'll read it out to verbatim. Residential rates are subject to being offset by higher nighttime of time of use rates charged by utilities. Low-income users may be charged above the rates they are being paid by the solar they contribute. So I guess at the end of the day, it's very important that for anyone considering solar, low income or not, that they really model out the economics of solar. There is, especially in the residential sector, there's a lot of misinformation out there. We're aware of some solar, to call them businesses is probably a stretch. Some organizations that are preying on this misinformation or preying on people making decisions that are not in their own best economic interest. We frown on that, and for any kind of solar, commercial or for rental properties serving residential low-income people, or for residential solar, we believe in a cautious, careful, well-informed decision being made. And quite often, solar is not a good solution for people, depending on what their solution or what their specific situation is. So each individual has to make that decision. We believe in providing good, clear information and helping customers make a good decision in their own best self-interest. All right. A follow-up question about resources about misinformation out there. Caitlin, do we have a blog post about some of these impossible or too good to be true claims out there? I know that there's been some work done by SEIA and Green Energy Ohio, some nonprofits on this. I know there's some class action lawsuits in North Carolina and other states. Other states' attorney generals are looking into some of these things. There have been some investigations by some kind of investigatory reporters about some of these tactics.
Yep, absolutely. We can share those resources.
Super. So we'll follow up with some of those in the follow-up. Well, we're coming to a close, but this is not the end of the conversation. This is the end of today's episode of the conversation. So again, we're very excited about this legislation. We think that it's going to really, really make what was a good technology even more attractive to many of our clients throughout the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic. And we are excited as we grow to create the solar economy and to create more and more clean, free energy projects for you, our clients, and for our planet. Jarrod, any parting words?
Thanks everyone for joining us. We appreciate your interest in helping to accelerate the shift to clean energy.